again, everybody. Welcome to my show, The Big Picture with Joey Mack. I'm your host, Joey McKinnich. Getting right back at it. Want to get back into the subject matter that I was talking about in the last show. We were talking about the transfer of the ICANN network over to the United Nations and how that affects our nation. I gave a couple of sources just to get some information going and get your brains turning. I do have a guest with me today. My guest name is Ken Fredrickson. Ken, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, Ken, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners and to the viewers and let them know a little bit about who you are real quick.
Well, my name is Ken Fredrickson. I'm out of La Junta, Colorado, and I guess in the past I served as client support for covert government accounts at Nextel Communications. I've also worked for and trained by the U.S. Department of Commerce on Internet protocol, and currently a web developer and marketing manager for a number of organizations. One of my big ones was 100% Made in the USA organic food market back in early 2000s, and I've done traffic generation for the food store that drew mainstream press for the statewide exposure, and learning how to leverage social media video channels and stuff like that. But basically, I've just been studying up on ICANN, and the first sort of a myth that people think is that the UN has already taken control. And
right. That was
not the case. Yeah.
Everything that I read showed midnight on September 30th. What information do you have that's different?
Well, what happened on midnight September 30th was that is when the U.S. Department of Commerce actually gave up control of ICANN, but it did not go to the UN. It just simply went to ICANN itself. Well, ICANN is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, and they're out of California.
Right, and this is this is an independently owned corporation, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, correct.
Right. It's an independently owned corporation. Just a little rundown, and we talked about this in the last show. That is overseen by the Department of Commerce at this point, and has been since the inception of the Internet, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Well, since the inception of the Internet, I mean, you first started out with ARPANET.
Right.
And then ARPANET.
But this modern system, basically, is because of the ICANN network. Yeah, the DSN system, the domain name system that we have in place now. So basically,
it's not just ICANN. It's also what's called the IANA, which is the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. And together, what they do is they control basically the domain names.
And the IP addresses as well, or just the domain names?
I believe just domain names, but the IP addresses could be included as well. I would have to look deeper into that.
Okay. The big deal here is, well, what are the implications for us with this? Why is this a good deal for us to do, or why is it a bad deal for us to do? Is this something that's going to benefit the United States for having this happen? Are we just too lazy to manage it?
A Ted Cruz spokesman, Phil Novak, Ted Cruz and Jeff Sessions.
And Ted Cruz opposed this, correct?
Some of the other more knowledgeable Republicans were against this, and I sent you that list of all the Republicans.
Right. There was
basically the globalist elites and establishment.
What was that vote? What was the vote number on that? It was 21 to 77. Is that correct? 21 against transfer, and 77 that voted to transfer power.
Yes, that was the numbers. So Phil Novak said, if you control the authoritative root zone file, you can control what websites appear on the internet. And it goes on to say, can you directly make changes to content on a specific site? No, but can you determine who gets a site, the policies governing those sites, and which sites get to operate and which sites get shut down?
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the alternative media sites, stuff like that, if they decided they wanted to, I'm not saying they're going to, if they decided they wanted to, they could come in and just shut down sites like that and not allow them to operate on the internet. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Sort of.
Okay.
The Wall Street Journal says when the Obama administration announced its plan to give up U.S. protection of the internet, it promised the United Nations would never take control.
Right.
But because of the administration's naivety or arrogance, UN control is actually the likely result if the U.S. gives up internet stewardship. Well, they've already done that.
Right.
So now it's just a matter of if the UN is going to come in. So what are the ramifications? Well, the ramifications, from a day-to-day point of view, are going to be little unless the UN decides to start monetizing, and that's going to be the big problem.
I see.
If the UN decides that they want to start monetizing all kinds of different access to the internet at various levels and all that, might start costing money.
And the internet's been free. That's one thing
you're eliminating free speech.
That's one thing we swore to do when the internet first came under our control, is to maintain that free speech and maintain that the internet would be free. And it looks like it's been sold down the pike. And hopefully we're wrong. Right. Hopefully that knee-jerk reaction that we get when somebody hands something off to the UN, as important as our free speech, hopefully that's just, as a lot of my friends like to call it, a conspiracy theory. And I kind of think it's not. I kind of think it's not, but people, this show's called The Big Picture for a reason. We want to get to the bottom of things. It's real easy to take a subject and hype it up and make it seem really, really bad, and it's real easy for the mainstream media, it seems, to pass over things and just ignore them and pretend like they don't exist. I want to get to the root of the cause. Why is this a benefit to our country? You're hearing basically, and Ken and I, two similar opinions as to why this is a bad thing, or could be a very bad thing for our country and for our freedom of speech, for the sovereignty of our nation. That's the other thing we didn't really even talk about. The sovereignty of our nation and our communication system via the internet is at stake with this, is it not?
I would say ultimately yes, depending on how far the UN takes it. But
right.
That's sort of a yet to be seen type scenario.
Right. We're speculating from right now, and I guess right
now it's pure speculation.
What we're dealing with here is that we have given power over to a community of leaders that have proven themselves to be a little less than fair.
Well, another thing is that ICANN, we're actually sitting better. If ICANN just stays in California, that's fine. But they have already said they might either go to Singapore, Finland, or I forget what the third one is. I believe it's either China or Russia. I can't remember which.
So they're talking about
but
just moving.
That, and especially if they go to like China, well, now you might have censorship at the Chinese level.
Right.
Which is, basically a lot of stuff.
Yeah, everything, pretty much. Yeah. The communist level. And that's what we'd like to avoid. I really would like to get somebody's input that thinks that this could be a good thing. Do you have anything that you saw in your research, Ken, that shows that this might be a benefit to us? Or is everything you're coming across potentially bad?
If the UN stays out of it, it actually removes a portion of governmental control over the internet, so it actually makes it a little bit freer at this point. But that's as long as ICANN stays in California, or possibly moves to Singapore or Finland, where they're basically just as free. But again, if they move to China or that other country, I can't remember the exact one, that could pose a significant problem. And again, that's just one of those things that's going to be seen in the future. I'm sure if I don't know if we're going to bring politics into this or not, but if Hillary gets in, I'm sure that's not going to help. But I do know that Trump is for a very free internet, so he would do everything he could to help.
In case my viewers and listeners didn't realize that Ken is a Trump supporter, we'll get that out of the way right here and right now. He's been a Trump opponent since the very beginning, or a proponent, yes, since the very beginning, and with good reason for a lot of the things that he's seen from his experience and so on and so forth. Ken, I think we're dealing with, if we look at the big picture, I think we're dealing with the transfer of control to a world government, to this this worldwide government that was talked about in the early 80s by George Bush Sr. when he talked about the New World Order and the UN resolutions. I think we're heading that direction. I think that's one thing that I hope that Donald Trump is adamantly against. There's a few things that Trump has said that I don't agree with. His stop and frisk thing, stuff like that. Those I see as assaults on liberty. As a self-proclaimed libertarian, I have a problem with those things. I do, however, like the fact that Trump is self-funded. He's not playing to the cards and playing the game the way that the last so many politicians have since George Bush Sr. basically. Well, let me rephrase that. Since Ronald Reagan got a warning shot, I think things changed drastically at that point. As a part of the big picture in this world, I mean, we have a responsibility here, people. If we don't stand up for this, nobody will. This happened without any regard to anything. There was a vote in Congress. Like I said, it failed miserably to go against it. But there was no pressure from the outside, and the reason is nobody ever told this was happening until it was already done. You heard very little rumblings about it prior to. I believe Alex Jones talked about it for a month or two prior, but he was discounted as a conspiracy theorist and just a nut job, so people didn't really listen to him. Now it's happened, and here we are wondering if we're going to have an internet or the internet that we know in the next couple of months or next couple of years. Seems to be a problem there that we need to address as citizens. We need to stand up, and I will post a link below this video on the YouTube channel. I will post a link to the voting record of the congressman that voted for and against this. And if your congressman voted against stopping this, I urge you to write a letter or call their office and let them know how you feel about your First Amendment right being taken away. Because essentially, even if it doesn't happen right now, it absolutely could happen. It absolutely could take place, because when you give control over the biggest source of information in the world to somebody and they decide they want to censor it, it really wreaks havoc on the sensibility of the people that are using it. I urge you to do that. I will post that link below on the YouTube page as soon as we finish here. I just want people to be aware. There's a lot of these things that take place. We get distracted easily, and we're easily distracted as a nation, but we get very distracted with stupid issues and this racial baiting that's taking place that's trying to divide us and separate us to the point that I believe we can be conquered. And I believe that's the whole big picture is those freedoms want to be taken away. I'm going into in our second half. I'm going to say thank you to Ken. Ken, we appreciate your input today. Look forward to having you on in the future and helping us out with some other subjects. I'm going to go ahead into the second half of the show and go into tomorrow's subject, and we will talk to you later, Ken. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joey.
All right. People, that brings me into my next point. Tomorrow's subject that I want to talk about, and I really want to hear people give some input on this. If you can put your comments down below in the comments. If you want to call in later and talk about this, we'll continue this subject on and we'll mix it in with the other stuff. But it is very, very important what's happening to us right under our noses that we don't know about. We need to pay attention. You need to spread the word. I'm trying to do my part here. I'm trying to do something other than just complain. I'm trying to help spread the word by letting other people know what's going on. And I hope you'll do the same thing. Please like and share this as much as you can. We want to take back control of our country, and we got to do what we got to do to make that happen. I want to come into my second point. The second half of the show, I want to talk about something totally off subject to that. Comes back around to it, but it's near and dear to my heart. As a veteran of the United States military with 12 years of service, I served in the United States Navy, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the U.S. Army National Guard. I served in 2 different conflicts, and the military is something that's been near and dear to my heart since the very beginning. I have been in service under, Ronald Reagan initially, and that tells you how old I am. George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton and George Bush Jr. So I've been in service under 4 presidents. I can tell you that a lot of things changed during that process, and it is not the same military that it was when I went in. And anybody that was in the military a while back, or even the guys that have been in now, that have been in for a while, will look back at the older days as the glory days, as the good old days, before things changed so much. There's been a plethora of changes taking place in the military lately, and it seems to be there's an attack on the traditions of the military. An announcement was made the other day that the U.S. Navy decided to do away with their rating system. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Navy has a rank system and a rating system. The rank system tells you what pay grade they are, and the rating system tells you in the Navy what job that person does. Kind of like the MOS system in the Army that tells you what job that person does. The Coast Guard has the same system of rank and rate as the Navy does, but they are under the Department of Homeland Security, and as far as I know, don't fall under this. The Navy decided the other day, Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, and Obama, and I'm sure they had some great thinking people help them out with this decision, that they wanted to get rid of the rating system. Now, I was a couple of different ratings in the Navy. I was an aviation ordnanceman. I was a construction mechanic in the Seabees, and in the Coast Guard, I was a machinery technician, and also a aviation structural mechanic. That rating tells somebody what you do in that particular job. When you have a service as large as the Navy, you need a way to be able to tell who does what and what their specialty is. The rating system was designed for that. It's been that way since the inception of the United States Navy. There were initially, I believe, 3 ratings: gunner's mate, boatswain's mate, and I forget the other one, quartermaster, I believe, the 3 oldest ratings in the Navy in the military service. And now those are going to be gone. You're just going to call somebody petty officer so-and-so, petty officer so-and-so, and if you don't know them specifically and know where they work, you're not going to have any idea what that person's specialty is. Now, I see a problem with that in the fact that confusion could take place in a service as large as the Navy. You don't always know everybody you're working with. You usually have a really tight-knit group of people that you work with on a daily basis, but you also have to interact and work with other people in the Navy, in other services as well. And knowing what those persons' specialties are is a benefit when you're going in and working together. Not knowing, I think, could be disastrous, and I think they're probably going to find that out. From what I've seen, they're planning on replacing the rating system with a 4-digit code, which I don't understand how that's going to be better other than just taking the personality away from it, taking the tradition away from it. You're replacing it with a code like the Army's MOS system, occupational specialty code. And those things, if they were across all the services the same, it would make sense, but they're different from the Air Force, they're different from the Army, now they're going to be different from the Navy and the Marine Corps. So all the jobs are just going to be kind of jumbled in and confused. I think this is a problem. There's a few other things going on with the military. Aside from the uniform regulations, I do like the change that the Navy made recently, and they got rid of those dadgum ugly blue camouflage uniforms, which, being here in the Florida Panhandle close to Naval Air Station Pensacola, we'd see those kids with their blue camouflage on, and I'm thinking, how is that going to help anything other than when you fall off a ship into the water, they won't be able to see you to rescue you. So I never really saw the benefit of the blue camouflage. My day, we had dungarees and chambray shirts, and they had a purpose. We had a white hat and everything else, and those uniforms had a purpose. If you fell off, you could actually use them to stay alive and float. I'm sure the new uniforms do as well, but just recently the Navy did switch from those blue camouflage to their traditional green. Now, the only problem I have with that is the other units like the CBs and the Special Operations units would always wear the green or the tan camouflage, and that's one way you could distinguish the difference. I guess the Navy, in its kinder, gentler version, wants everybody to feel like they're Special Operations, so they give them all the same color of camouflage. But that's not new. The Marine Corps and the Army's given everybody the same camouflage for a long, long time. But like I said, this is another attack on tradition, another attack on what I see is systematically depleting or dismantling our military and the military strength that we have. Tradition is a huge part of the military. It's what gives you the pride in who you are and what you've done, because you have done things that your ancestors have done. The ancestors that fought and died for our country. That's near and dear to my heart. Tradition has always been near and dear to my heart. And coming from a Reagan-era Navy background, we had ceremonies that were absolutely and completely hazing. And it caused bonding. It caused men to come together and bond as one. And the friendships that I built during that time are some of the most amazing friendships. They're a brotherhood. They're a brotherhood of people that we have bonded together in circumstances that will never break. And those guys would give their shirt off their back for me today, and I do the same for them. You don't build relationships like that when you build a fighting force and put it together the same way you do corporate America. You don't have relationships like that in corporate America, and there's a reason why. So all this abuse, quote unquote, it serves a purpose. When you go to boot camp, it's not easy for a reason. It's not easy because what you're going to be doing out in the world is not going to be easy. And if they take it easy on you in boot camp and you get out in the real world and you break, then you're going to cause the mission to fail. And that's what we're looking at now, I believe. Now, I invite opposing opinions to come in here. You're going to hear my opinion every time I have one. And most of the friends and commentaries that I have call in are going to be people of similar or like mind from me. But I invite anybody that has a legitimate argument or discussion. We're not going to argue here. We are going to discuss. If you want to call in and discuss these issues with me, I invite those calls. And I will put a link to my page where you can message me, or the email address, and I can set you up. If you would like to comment on this military assault, I would invite you to do that. I want to go over a couple other things. There was recently, there's 15 drill instructors from Parris Island, Marine Corps recruit depot, that are being investigated after a hazing incident in boot camp. Another recruit graduate who graduated from recruit training in the Marine Corps, which is a accomplishment in itself, gave up and is pressing charges against the Marine Corps for what he felt was unfair treatment, because he felt like he was hazed. It's the freaking Marine Corps, people. Come on. I mean, the United States Marine Corps, the most elite fighting force in this world as a unit, okay, as a whole, not counting the Marine Corps Special Operations Group, the DevGru, and all these special operations things, but as a basic fighting unit, the United States Marine Corps is full of fire-breathing, razor-pissing devil dogs. And that's how we like our Marine Corps. When we start tearing down a service like that, we start taking our warriors and turning them into pussified little girls that whine about everything and how unfair it is. We're doomed for failure. And I feel like that's what's taking place right now. I have a few very good friends that are Marines, and like I said, I've been in 3 services. The Marine Corps was not one. But I hold the utmost respect for jarheads, okay? I love them with all my heart. They are some of the most stand-up people you'll ever see. I couldn't pass the physical, couldn't fit my head in a jar, so I couldn't get in the Marine Corps. But I love them with all my heart. They are my brothers to the end, and I would give the shirt off my back for them as well. You don't find that in the civilian world, people. And you're not going to get that by treating Marines like civilians. That's not going to happen. And anybody that knows a Marine, anybody that's got a family member that was in the Marine Corps, yeah, they might be a little crazy, but I tell you what, they're the most stand-up people you ever see. The stuff that's instilled in you in that type of training, when you get put in those type of environments, is different than what you and I experience in the civilian world. Okay, it's totally different. When you go into a military unit, you bond for a reason, because you're going to be there, as we like to call it, in the shit with these people. You're going to be there in the muck, in the shit, in very bad situations where you feel like giving up, you feel like quitting, but you know what? You don't quit because your buddy there is depending on you, and vice versa. It's happening both ways. The assault on the military started happening when they started bringing, and I'm going to sound like a sexist for this, but I am not a sexist, okay? When women started coming into roles that were a little less traditional, and I'm not saying that women cannot do everything men can do. It's a given fact. Women have proven it over and over again. They can do just about anything we can do, and some of it they can do better. But people, you were made a man or you were made a woman for a reason. We have traditional roles, and those traditional roles is what made us flourish. And that's what, when I'm with a woman and she has different abilities than I do, and then we come together, we make a full circle. It's we can do all things together, as where some things I couldn't do, some things she couldn't do, because we're different. And yes, women and men are different. You can fight it all you want to, but it's a fact. When we embrace those roles, and I'm not saying that we have to be sexist about this at all, okay? A man should absolutely and completely respect the woman, okay? And the woman should do the same with the man. And I know we've fallen off that horse many times in this society, and that's a lot of what's going on with this big picture, and that's where our problem's coming from. When we respect those roles and come together as one, I believe it's the strongest we've ever been as a nation. It's the strongest we've ever been as a family unit. We've done more good for ourselves as a country when we held to those values. And as soon as we got rid of those values, I feel like everything else has just kind of fallen to the wayside since. So you can call me a sexist for that. You can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've been around long enough. I've seen what works and what doesn't. And I know that this society of men becoming women and women becoming men it's not benefiting us at all. It's tearing us apart. You have men that don't know how to change a freaking flat on a tire. Give me a break, okay? You should learn how to do that when you're like 3. I mean, you're a man, for God's sakes. Change a freaking flat. You got men that'll sit in the car and let their women pump the gas. That should never happen. Your woman should be able to go in and use the bathroom or get something to drink or whatever while you get off your lazy butt, get out of the car and pump the gas for her. I don't care if it's your car or not. That's just being a gentleman. There's something, a lost art about being a gentleman. The military used to teach that. I don't think they do now, but the military used to teach how to be a gentleman, how to open the door for someone, how to be polite, say yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir, no ma'am. Those things have value. And when we discard it, then we as a country lose our value. And I guess my rant's over there. I wanted to make sure that I hit these points. This is something, like I said, very near and dear to my heart. United States military, I love it with all my heart. I know it's been used for purposes that I would like to pull some people's teeth out over. Some corporate greed has taken place that's put our men and women in harm's way that I don't agree with at all. But as a people, the United States military, you'll never find better people anywhere else. And overall, there's some turd birds in every unit, and everyone's had one. And just because you were in the military doesn't mean you're an upstanding citizen. Let's get that straight first too. Like I said, every unit I've ever been in had a turd bird in it, and just because you were in it doesn't mean you weren't the turd bird. So, but overall, most people that have been in the military or are in the military are stand-up people that have values that were embedded in them as a young person, and they, for the most part, try to hold to those. And those are the people that I like to keep around me as my friends and my family and so on and so forth. I salute you if you served in our military. And if you're going in now, God help you, because I don't know what you're facing. And I feel kind of bad for you, because you didn't get to experience the amazing service that I got to experience when I joined the military. It's a time-honored tradition that's being torn apart, and I'd really like to hear some input on it. If you would like to comment on this, please contact me, and on the next show I will bring you in with a phone call, just like we did Ken here with the internet stuff, and we'll discuss it on air. And if you have an opposing view, absolutely, you want to call up, tell me what a sexist I am and what a bigot I am, you're welcome to do so. I want to hear your opinion. I care about what matters to you. I care what you think. It doesn't mean it's going to change what I think, but I will listen to you. I will absolutely listen to you. I will hear you out. And if you have intelligent resources, please bring them and quote them with you. I look forward to this show growing and becoming what it can be. I think we have the opportunity to put something in people's front palate that they were kind of discarding. We're too busy watching football right now, is what I should be doing right at this moment. But this is too important, people. This is way too important to ignore. And we got to start standing up. We got to start doing something. And let's hope that ICANN transfer doesn't get me shut down here before I even get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining me again today for this show. Please like it, share it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's not much there. This is only the second show. But the more people we get there, the more shows I can do, the more this thing can grow. And I want you to grow it with me. Call in, be a part of the show. I'm looking for regular contributors. The internet site, which is going to be thebigpicturetv.net, is in process right now. Ken's actually working on that. And we will be putting up a blog where I will be addressing these stories and so on and so forth, links to these videos and such, so you can go back and watch them later at a later date. I appreciate you watching and tuning in. I thank you for letting me take your time a little bit today and do my rant, get my rant out, and get my passion going and let you see what I'm all about. I hope to see what you're all about. Thank you very much. God bless America and heaven help us. Have a great day.